to another session with Ascent Realty, and I'm your host, Barrister Benson Okeziowosu. So welcome to the show titled Property Matters, where we talk about property issues and allied matters. So the topic for today, something basic, something simple, something relatable, and it's simply things to look out for before buying a house. Now, before buying a house. Now, by house, I'm sure everyone's mind will be going at the physical building itself. But when I mention, which is what it is, but when I mention house, I want you to look at it in a generic term. Consider, for the purpose of this session, the word house will be used for, the general property, both the land on which the house is built and the house itself. So, last week we talked about things to look out for before selling a house. So we thought it necessary to do a part 2 on discussing things to look out for before buying a house. Now, I'm sure this would look similar, but the point is that there are things, or rather there are different points that must be considered when you want to buy a house, which more or less varies from what you look out for when you want to sell a house. Now, first and foremost, in every property transaction, the one thing you must look out for, or that determines even your power to get a property, to get a house, it's the budget. Your budget is so vital because it determines even the location you get the property. I mean, you wouldn't have a budget of 5 million naira and you're looking for a property of 50 million naira, or you're going to look for a property in a location where it is sold at 50 million naira. Now, I don't know how strong your bargaining power is, but I am certain that it is very difficult to price 50 million to 5 million naira. So, your budget, it's very, very vital. Now, the next thing to look out for is the general location of the environment. Now, there's this saying in real estate business generally that location is key and king. Anything you want to do or consider when you are talking about properties, location is the center of it all. Because I mean, the first thing when you want to buy a house, or when someone wants to buy a house, now having a budget, the next thing the person looks out for is the location. Now, you heard people say things like, I want a good location, I want a good location. Now, there are different things that make up what a good location could be. It varies. There's a wide range of considerations that one can make. A good location may be one that is close to your house. I mean, we have people who translate. Now, sorry for the cutting. I'm going to give some illustrations, and I'm going to use Lagos State because this is our current location, and this is a place that we can easily relate to, whether you reside in Nigeria, whether you reside in Lagos State or not. So we have people who move from the mainland to the island on a daily basis just for work. Some time ago, I spoke to a colleague of mine who complained so bitterly on how she needed to leave her house as early as 5 a.m., if possible earlier, just to get to somewhere Lekki or Aja, can't really tell which, on a daily basis. Now, you can imagine that, even if the house is conducive, is fine, it's awesome, it's all that, the single reason that the location is far off from the place of work is a whole lot. And we all know the popular saying that stress kills passion. So you can imagine the stress of having to transport ourselves 5 days a week to and fro from the mainland to the island. So that, nearness to your place of work can form part of what a good location can be for anyone who wants to buy a house. Now, another thing could be nearness to the school environment of your children. Now, except your children are residing in the boarding school or the school outside the state. Obviously, if your children are schooling outside, it's either they're in a boarding school or they're staying with a relative or a family friend or something. If outside your state or place or your normal place of residence, that's okay. However, if your children, if you are the type of person that you do school runs on a daily basis, the best bet would be to purchase or acquire a house within a location that it will be easy for you to transport your children here and there. Now, in addition to getting a good location for when you want to buy a house, another thing to look out for is the presence of some of the basic amenities within that location. Now, such basic amenities includes electricity supply, water supply, access, good road network, and living in an environment where you can easily get or purchase the basic needs of life. Now, in terms of electricity, you and I know that you would rather live in a place that you pay for light and get the light than living in a place or residing in a place where every 2 seconds they have stolen the transformer, or every 2 seconds, the moment rain falls, forget about light, or some flimsy excuse as to why there's no electricity supply. Water, I mean, we cannot do without water. Please, I dare anybody to mention one thing that you can do without water. And that's how important having access to water supply can be. Even if you don't have it personally, you should have somewhere that you can easily purchase the water from. Now, access to good roads. I want to point this out. It is not enough that the road, wherever you want to buy your house, it's not enough that the road is smooth. Are there drainage channels where, if rain falls, where the water can pass through without any flood or any chaos? There's this popular term or phrase in Nigeria where people say things like the road is motorable. That's simply because you can just drive your car through. Now, given the situation in the country, we can be lucky to find a place where you can easily drive your car. But we need to take note of things like chain gallops and crazy potholes that can scratch, below your car, and so many other things. See, when the effect of a good road with a bad drainage channel is always felt during the rainy season. And we all know that the rainy season is usually longer than the dry one. And when rain pours and has no, the reason why flooding occurs is because the drainage system is bad, it's poor. So if there's no channel for the water to pass through, it will find somewhere it will just spread and mess up everywhere. So these are some of the things you need to look out for when you are trying to purchase a house. Now, in terms, the other one I mentioned about living in an environment when you can easily get access to some of the things that you need on a daily basis. For example, for people who live in Omole Estate, there's a supermarket nearby. There's a salon, hair salon. There's a food market just outside the estate. Even there are churches, not a church, there are churches here. Their banks are within the estate, or rather just outside the estate, either the main gates or the back. So the point I'm trying to make here is people who live or who are opportuned to purchase houses or even rent houses within Omole Estate are covered in terms of having access to certain things that they would need, to live their lives. Access to supermarkets where they can get groceries, anything. I'm sure there's a tailor shop somewhere. I don't really know how this place works, but I'm sure you get the point. It's very, very important to look out for these type of things when you are looking for a house. Now, another thing to look out for in the future is security. Now, security is a concept that everybody must take very seriously. Security is not just the business of the security men, of policemen, of soldiers. Security is everyone's business. So before you purchase a house, it is good you owe yourself the duty to ensure that the environment you are buying the house in, it's one where the crime rate is low. Now, there's this book I read some time ago. It's called Crime is Normal. The reason laws exist is just for people to break them. Now, that does not make sense, but that's the reality of it. That's the reality of it. The reason something is a crime or an offense is simply because there's a law written against it. So, but the point here is, I'm not saying that that location should be a crime-free location. I don't know how possible that is. But it can be a location where the crime rate is very low. Now, how can you determine a crime-free or crime-prone location? Very simple. The world now, as they say, is a global village. The information you need is just with your handset, with your cell phone. Even making verbal inquiries with those living in that location is enough access to information. We have the news, Channels TV, NTA, AIT, Arise TV, that give us daily news of happenings all over the country. So definitely, even newspapers. So definitely, if there's any security issue anywhere, you will definitely look. And that should determine where you would want to buy a house. Now, it will be, now I don't like, given the insecurity situation in the East right now, in the Southeast, it will be very rare. Now, I'm not saying it's not possible, but it will be very rare to see someone who would want to buy a house in such a crime. I'm not saying the whole of the Southeast that it's on fire, that nobody's living there. No. But in locations, in parts, even let me not say Southeast, because currently the insecurity situation is all over the country. It's not a Southeast, it's not a Northeast, it's not a Southwest, it's not a geopolitical issue. It's a general issue in Nigeria. Of course, we have those locations that are okay, but other locations, I'm intentionally refusing to pronounce names to avoid maybe some form of discrimination or whatever. I'm just trying to enlighten you on things you need to know. But at locations where security breaches is a daily occurrence, I mean, you should, on a normal day, you have no reason purchasing property in that location, given the fact that you want to reside in it, or you even want to rent it out. Because, again, nobody would want to live in a location that is crime prone. So that's the point that's the point I'm trying to make. Now, in addition to the security situation, another thing to look out for is the sanitation of the environment. Is it clean? The popular saying goes, cleanliness is next to godliness. We keep hearing that. I know each time we mention that, it's always, the reference being made here is usually to like personal hygiene and all that. But in this case, I'm talking about environmental hygiene. Is it a clean environment? I remember some years back when we were relocating from, I think, Aba to Abia State, one of the houses we looked at had a heap of refuse dump just in front of it. Remember, one of the points we mentioned last week on things to look out for before selling a house is sanitation, keeping the house in a proper condition, in a visual, let me form English that does not exist, in a state that is pleasing to the eyes. That place had a heap. I'm a tall man, so you can imagine a heap of dirt taller than me and wide. I mean, on a normal day, nobody would even want to rent such an environment, talk less of buying a house in the environment, because things like that impact on your health. Imagine perceiving such decaying, repulsive smell on a daily basis. You may get used to the smell, but trust me, the impact on your body will show somewhat in future to come. So ensure that the environment you want to purchase your house in is a neat one. Now, in addition to being in a neat environment, another thing to look out for is how waste is being disposed in that environment. Now, many of the estates we have in Lagos here, you see these tiny, well, I won't call it tiny, but you see these sizable drums just in front of each house, where, you know, when they are done with, any house is done with their business, and the waste, obviously, we are human beings, we make waste on a daily basis. So the refuse bin and whatever, with the dirt or whatever that we are done with, we simply package it inside there. Then on a weekly, it can't, it won't, it's not, I've not seen on a daily basis, but on a weekly basis, you see a big truck that comes, packs everything, and takes it away. So these are some of, that's why people, in terms of security and sanitation, that is why the best bets, or I won't say the best bets, but that is why people look out for estates, buying houses in an estate. In terms of security, people would prefer to live in an estate because of the protocol being observed when people are leaving or even exiting. Here things like call the gates, yeah, basically calling the gates, just to make sure that whoever claims he's going to see someone is actually going to see that person. And at some of these gates, they may or may not be armed personnel, but the point is, there are people there in charge of ensuring the safety of everyone in property. Now, instead of a will, the best alternative to it is what is known as an assent. Now, an assent is the final document that the executors of the will or the administrators of the will would use to confer interest on the actual beneficial owner. Let me not say beneficial owner, the actual beneficiary to the will. So an executor, that is where a will exists, or administrator, where the deceased died intestate, that is without a will, and they had to apply for administrators to sort out the estate of the deceased. So yeah, another place search can be conducted is at the Corporate Affairs Commission, and this is where a company is the owner of the property. Now, or another place to conduct search too is at the Land Registry. Now, I need you to know that it is not at this, you must not conduct searches at these different locations if they don't warrant it. The only certain place, or rather, two certain places that you need to, or even, I don't even think this, I think the only certain place you need to conduct a search at is at the Land Registry and the Surveyor General's office. The reason is this: if the property is not under a will, there's no need checking the probate registry. If on the face value there is no court case, there's no litigation on the property, no need checking the court registry. If the owner of the property is not a company, there's no need checking CAC. So the searches, where to conduct the search depends on the circumstance of the transaction. That's why they say every matter, every case is determined by the circumstances that surrounds them. So if there is no will, if the property is not subject to a will, no need to conduct a search at the probate. There's no point repeating what I've said. I'm sure you get that. If the property is not owned by a company, no need checking at CAC. Things like that. So yeah, these are very, very vital points that must be taken note of. Now, another point of due diligence that should be done is in terms of making physical inspections. By physical inspections, I mean going to the site, either by yourself or by a representative or an agent, someone representing you. However, the best bet would be to go yourself, because the tastes of who you might send may not be your own taste. So when you go for physical inspection, some of the things you look out for are: one, if you're buying the land itself, no property on top, then you can look out for things like the size, the actual size of the property. That's like the major thing you look out for, the actual size. Imagine, now I don't know if anyone actually has like a mental picture of what property sizes are, but imagine going to, or rather being told that you are buying 10 plots only to be taken to a site of 1 plot. Things happen. In as much as property transaction is very lucrative, the amount of fraud that takes place is alarming. So you owe yourself due diligence. There's something called constructive notice in law. It simply means that you should have known. I mean, the law would not expect you to know what ordinarily you should not know. But if normally you should know that thing, and you are coming to claim that you did not know, or you did not take steps to know, you've slept on your rights. The equity expects you to be vigilant in any dealing. So you cannot sleep on your rights and expect the court to enforce a right you slept on. So that physical inspection helps to check the actual size of the property. If you don't know how to determine size of plots visually, you can simply go with someone who knows how to do it. I mean, it's just the person can simply escort you. Another thing to look out for is the nearness to the road. Some time ago, I conducted accepted briefs for a client on behalf of Law Ascent, and there was this recurrent question we kept on asking, and that's how close is the property to the main road? Now, obviously, every agent will simply want to say it is 10 minutes drive, 5 minutes drive, 2 seconds drive, it's just in front of it. That is them, that's their own. I mean, everybody wants to push their market to you. In addition to I'm not saying that they are lying, don't get me wrong. But like I said, due diligence. Anything you need to do to ensure you are safe, please do it. So in addition to they are telling you that it's close to the road, it's 5 minutes drive, it's 10 minutes drive, there's this, there's that, telling you the landmarks around it, you are expected to take a visit to the site to confirm. You get it? You're not going to fault them, you're going to confirm what they have said. So when you go and check these things out and they turn out to be what they are, fine and good. If you are purchasing a building itself, physical inspection helps you know if there are tenants in that house. Yes, mind you that the rights of a tenant is tied to the property and not the owner of the property. So when you buy a house and you see and you are unaware of the tenants there, even if you, by the time interest has been transferred to you, that your interest has been given to you as a buyer or as a current owner will not override the interest of the tenant so far as their tenancy is still running. Do you get? So if you are okay with purchasing the property with the tenants being there, fine and good. All that will be done is after you become the new owner, the tenants will be, or rather you'll be introduced to the tenants as the new landlord, and you take it up from there. But if you don't want any tenancy, or you don't want any tenants around, you can simply look for another property to purchase. So yes, these are the things to look out for when you are. These are very, very important points. Now, please take note that in all these considerations, now, it may be very difficult, or not necessarily that difficult, but the possibility of seeing all these factors at once, I don't know about that. However, all you need to do, yes, all you owe yourself is to look out for the things or factors that are very important to you. Maybe if you are okay with living far off from your workplace, maybe you're mobile, that's fine, feel free to do so. You're okay with the environment you found yourself in, there's lights, there's no water, maybe you prefer water over electricity, you have your generator, you have your panel. The considerations vary based on the person buying the property. So what you owe yourself is just to ensure that everything is in order, or at least everything is to your taste. However, the three factors that I personally, and while representing the firm, would suggest that every buyer should consider or take cognizance of. Number one, nearness to basic facilities. Whether we like it or not, we cannot do without water. We cannot do without electricity. We cannot do without good road. I mean, look at Lagos. Even with the good road, traffic is killing everybody. So you can imagine where the roads are bad, what will happen. So, nearness to basic facilities, very, very important. Security, very, very important. And then, in addition to getting the title documents, that's knowing the title documents covering your property, conducting due diligence on those documents are very, very important. Do not shy away from conducting due diligence because you don't want to pay a lawyer to conduct the diligence for you. There's a reason why we are lawyers. We have undergone the training by the grace of God. So, what we may see no one else may see it. Not to brag or anything, but that's just the simple truth. Feel free to negotiate with your lawyer, but always involve him or her whenever a property transaction is to be made. Like I said, the three, out of everything I've said here, please take these three considerations home in case you want to buy a house or any property at all. Number one, nearness to basic facilities. Number two, security. And number three, conducting due diligence on any title document that has been presented to you. So that will be all for today. Thank you very much. I hope you were enlightened. I'm still your host, Barrister Benson Okezie-Wilson. Do have a lovely day.